What's up, everybody? Welcome back into Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast. We have missed you all. It has been a little bit of a break after minicamp, kind of recharged the batteries a little bit. But man, things are going to start picking up heavy, fast and furious here over the next couple of weeks, Ryan, as we move our way towards training camp. We'll obviously touch on a bunch of different topics on the way to the start of training camp. But today's show should be pretty fun. How are you, my friend?
I am doing great. Right in that mix of start of summer, which means tons of summer projects. But other than that, doing well and looking forward to, like you said, to training camp here, which is right around the corner.
We are going to be packed this month. Obviously, we'll have a live show at least out at St. John Fisher College, right around there at Dorado. We have a date on that. I'll bring that to you in a moment. But we're going to be, first up, July 11th. Get this on your calendar. It is a Thursday night. We will be back at 29's Kitchen Bar. The patio is going to be open. It's going to be rocking. They're going to have Chuck and the boys are going to have some awesome deals for everybody, some drink specials. Their menu is absolutely amazing. I'm gonna try a few more items when we're out there this time. We're gonna be setting the stage, setting things up, talking Bills with everybody, Ryan. We're so excited about this one.
Yeah, had a great time the last time we were there. Filled up the bar. Now that it's summer weather, we can be out on that patio. So Bills Mafia, turn up and show up, and we'll have a great time.
It is August 4th is the Wingnut Show, and we're coming to Dorado during training camp. We're going to be at Dorado. Wingnuts is driving up at least 2,000 chicken wings to make on the property there. Dorado has so many awesome, fun drinks. They have their own menu of amazing food. We're going to have a live show there. It's going to be an awesome time. So get those two dates on your calendar, July 11th, August 4th. It's going to be a great time. All right, so let's get into today's topic. And when this dropped last week, Ryan, like it definitely like perked up my ears and had me very interested to talk about Von Miller, because I've noticed a different Von Miller, over the course of the last 6 to 8 months, even going back to the end of last season, a guy that, brings the energy, brings the vibes, brings the smiles, right? Like you can't miss it. He hasn't been the same guy like since the injury,
Right.
or at least maybe since trying to come back from the injury, because before he played last year, I thought we saw a guy that was still the same, bringing the energy, trying to like get people motivated in the locker room. But somewhere along the way, I felt like he stopped being that guy, and that energy level just wasn't at the same spot. And we talked about it during minicamp where he said, yeah, like there was times where he doubted himself. I'm going to read this quote, and then we're going to get into it. He was asked in an interview with Sports Illustrated about his biggest individual and team goals for the upcoming season, and here's what he said. My biggest individual goal is just getting back to playing my style of football. It's crazy how you get injured, you come back, and you really shouldn't have even been playing, and people judge you by a product on the field. I could have easily sat out all season, but I couldn't do that to my teammates. I felt like being later in my career, I didn't want to sacrifice any of my years, but at the same time, I shouldn't have been out there. When you hear that, Ryan Talbot, what do you think?
I want to be careful, Matt, because is this a reflection of a player that says I wasn't the guy that I know I can be out there on the field last season? Or is this him kind of saying that, I kind of just sucked it up and played a year? Because if it's the latter, he cost this team, in my opinion, with his snaps on the field. I'm not saying that the Bills had someone that was, left off this roster that necessarily would have come in and been a 4, 5, 6 sack player, but he took snaps away from guys that were either on this roster or maybe would have been elevated from the practice squad had he been put on the IR, had he been put on ice last season. And let's face it, he did absolutely nothing for this Bills team last year. 3 total tackles in 12 games. His pass rushes toward the end of the season, we saw a few flashes of the old Von Miller, but he was pretty much a non-factor every time that he was on the field. Every time that he was brought in on a pass rush situation, he was phased out one-on-one. He never got close to the quarterback more times than not. So if this is a reflection of a guy saying, looking back at it, I had no business being out there, fine. I agree with you completely. You are being a team player. If this is the other, though, where he's kind of questioning the thought process after he said himself he was good to go, good to play, thought he could have played week 1 against the Jets, then I take some issue with it.
Yeah, there's so much going on here because if you go back to last season, Brandon Beane said one of the things that they were dealing with was trying to keep him off the field. So it almost was like Vaughn was pushing the envelope to try to get back on the field while the Bills were trying to slow play it a little bit. And then it got to the point where reading between the lines, it's almost like they couldn't keep him off the field. And then he basically admitted that as much in that quote when he said, I felt like being later in my career, I didn't want to sacrifice any of my years. And it's funny how, listen, I'm not taking a run at Vaughn here necessarily, but like you can't have two truths. You can't say you were doing it for your teammates and in the same time say you didn't want to sacrifice one of your final years of your career. Which one is it? Is it about you or is it about the team? And it felt like more about you because of what you said there and kind of laid out. They're in a spot where the Bills need him to be any semblance of the player that he was in 2022. They didn't have the means to go out and add any other players at the position to kind of supplement the losses that they're going to experience off of last year's team. I mean, Leonard Floyd, while his production kind of dipped towards the end of the season, he was still a very important piece to what they did and was important when Von Miller was kind of working his way back. And even after he was back and not maybe producing at the same high enough level, it feels like in a lot of ways, the Bills are banking on Von Miller being that version of the player close to it. Is that a bad bet if you're Brandon Beane?
It's not a bad bet because of where the Bills are financially. It's a bet that just needs to be made. You're depending on, let's say, Von Miller to get 5 sacks, which I think is realistic. I think after a year removed from this injury, he had 8 in his first year in Buffalo. I think 5 is attainable for him. I know you lost 10 with Leonard Floyd, but you expect AJ Epinesa, who was having a career year before the rib injury against the Chiefs in the regular season, to hopefully stay healthy and build off of that. Greg Rousseau to stay healthy and build off of that. Maybe it's another year of Kingsley Jonathan. Maybe it's one of their draft picks. Maybe it's just someone that's not even on our radar right now. But between all of those players, they're hoping that they can make up that ground of, the 10 sacks. And it might maybe it won't be a sack. Maybe it'll be a pressure, or maybe it'll be a hit that leads to an interception. There's other ways to kind of create those impact plays overall. Losing Floyd hurts, but the Bills weren't necessarily in a financial spot to go out in free agency and address that. Now, where they are now, at least according to the last salary cap records from the NFLPA, the Bills are still at around $11 million, if I remember correctly. Maybe they go out and they sign an Emmanuel Ogbah to a very team-friendly 1-year deal. Maybe there's someone else out there that they think fits that scheme, and that can make up a few of the sacks as well. Going back to your original question, I just feel like there wasn't much Brandon Beane could do. He was his hands were tied because of where the Bills were, eating the dead cat from the Stephon Diggs deal, trying to reset for 2025 and beyond while still fielding a competitive team in 2024.
Yeah, I agree with you that this was the only play. The only problem is this is the second highest cap hit on the Bills roster right now, with Von Miller coming in at $15 million on the cap. Josh Allen is the top cap hit, which is, let me see, I just had it up here, $30.35 million. Then it's Matt Milano, Deion Dawkins, and Ed Oliver and Taron Johnson. So 4 of the top 6 cap hits on this team are hits on the defensive side of the ball. And the number 1 is Von Miller. And I think it's a good bet from the perspective of guys coming off of this specific injury. Take the age out of it, because it's certainly a concern, right? Like, battling back from this injury at 35 years old is different than doing it in your 20s. But coming off this injury, 2 years removed, that gives you the best chance to see the version of the player that maybe they were before the injury, or if they can get back to that. This is a high-level athlete. This is a guy that, just based on his knowledge of the game, should be more effective than he was a year ago. So I push back a little bit in just that I don't think the expectation should be 5 sacks. I think the expectation should be 10 sacks. And I think he's got to find a way to be that, because I just don't know that we've seen enough from AJ Epinesa to all of a sudden say he's going to be a 10 plus sack guy. And Greg Rousseau, who at times has looked really good, his problem is being able to stay healthy. And then after that, there's absolutely no proven production on this team. And I can't even put Dwayne Smoot into that category because he's a 6 sack a season guy before the injury, where he had, what he had, like 1.5 to 3 last year. I don't remember the exact number. I'm not putting him in a spot where he's going to be a regular contributor for this edge rushing unit.
Yeah, and Red, White, and Bill saying Bean tied his own hands. I get that. In a way, he did. He thought that Von Miller was the missing piece to this team, the player that would put them over the top. Now, Matt, for 10 sacks, I think the last time that Von Miller had a double-digit sack season was 2018. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that was the last time he's even reached double digits. He looked like he was on his way, to be fair to him, in his first season with Buffalo when he had 8 sacks early on in that year, but I don't know. I mean, Father Time is undefeated, and I think he looked a lot better in the spring. He was winning a lot, mind you, non-padded situations, but the brace is off. He looks more confident. You're seeing more of those videos where you see some of that speed and burst and things of that nature. I'm just not sure we'll ever see Von Miller back at a double-digit sack season, and maybe I'll eat crow on that.
Again, I don't know if I'm even predicting that here, Ryan. What I'm more saying is I feel like the team needs that from him.
Right.
Like, and maybe that's setting him up to fail in a way, but let me read the rest of this quote. And maybe that's where I'm kind of going with this. I feel like people are judging me on that. So it's making me a little bit angry, to be honest. It's making me tap into a Von that I haven't been in a while. I just want to get back to playing my style of football, get back to talking shit, making sacks, dancing, and making plays for my teammates. That's been my whole mindset this offseason. So, okay, you want to get back to being the old you. You're obviously motivated. You heard the noise. I mean, you go out and you play as many snaps as he did last year, 400 or whatever it was. It was 300. And you don't get a single sack. That's a motivated Von Miller. So I think setting the expectation at 10 sacks for a guy a couple years removed from that Rams run where he had 9.5 combined regular season between Denver and LA, and then 4 on that run in the playoffs in 4 games. I don't think it's too much to ask in a 17-game season that the guy that you're paying, that's counting against your cap $15 million, can get you 10 sacks.
Yeah, and that's fair. And maybe the Bills are smart in terms of how they use him, put him on a pitch count, put him out there on the obvious pass rush situations, keep him fresh because of his age, because of the, now being 2 years removed from the injury. Let Von Miller be the guy that can get after the quarterback in those must-have moments. And if you can keep him, like I said, limited in terms of the snaps and the reps, maybe that benefits him. Maybe it benefits the team down the stretch and into the postseason. And you can depend on Epinesa and Rousseau to maybe be your top pairing and give Javon Solomon some valuable reps as well in certain situations. Keep bringing these young guys along that you have from Rousseau down, and maybe good things will happen there. So it's a possibility. It's going to be interesting to see how the Bills manage him in 2024.
You mentioned Javon Solomon, and I think that's a really important side conversation that we're going to have as we lead up into training camp, and especially in training camp. What are our legitimate expectations when it comes to him making a run at a roster spot? I mean, this is a guy at Troy. I got his sports reference page pulled up here. 2023, 18 tackles for a loss, 56 total, 16 sacks. Had 4.5 sacks the year prior in the same amount of games, so a little bit of a down year, but 11 sacks, 17 tackles for a loss in 2021. This is a guy that had 2 premier years of production, but how quickly can he pick things up? And then how confident are we that if he even makes the roster, that the Bills will find a way to get him into a legitimate role? They've never done that. Even Rousseau, who I think is the best example of a guy they've drafted and gotten into a significant role, because if you remember Ed Oliver's rookie year, we were kind of sitting on our hands waiting for when is he going to get the kind of role that everybody envisioned for them when they took him 9th overall? Even if Solomon makes the team, can he be counted on?
So Solomon, if he doesn't make the team, that'd be a major disappointment, in my opinion. I know where he was drafted. I'll start there. In terms of a regular role, I think it'll be tough early on. I mean, there's only so many game day jerseys that you can give out. Where else can he contribute? Can he help on special teams? Can he do something there to earn a roster spot? If so, great. But I think it will take some time for him to actually get into that defensive end rotation for the Bills because of where he was drafted. You know, it's a lot different than a Greg Rousseau that they took with a first round pick, even an AJ Epinesa that they took with a second round pick. This will probably be something where we're looking at midway point of the season before maybe that opportunity arises in terms of, a game day jersey, getting a few reps here and there and having to make the most of those opportunities. So, mind you, health plays a role in that as well. If there's an injury elsewhere, then that could get escalated earlier in the season. More opportunities will come his way. But, first part of the question, I think that making the roster is something that it would be a big letdown if he didn't. But then the opportunity, I agree with you, is going to be tough to come by.
We had a question here that you had noted in the comments from Brandon over on YouTube. You guys were at camp every day. Was the energy around the team any different without Stephon Diggs? Say what you will about the guy, but he brought a lot of juice. Just wondering how the mood was. Go Bills. So, I mean, I was there every day, and I think this is something that we talked about a few times over the last month of the show, is that there was a rejuvenation of sorts around the team. That's kind of what I felt walking in there, watching people interact, like the newness of the team, because there's so many new faces, not only like players, but coaches as well. I think that gets like a level of energy to see, okay, over the last 2 years, the Bills have accomplished what they have, being Super Bowl contenders. Now it's almost like you reshuffle the deck a little bit, and this isn't the same team with the same expectations. Right. It's like it's a new version, and I think you can get excited about what that version could potentially accomplish that those previous two haven't been able to do.
And you noted it. Mac Hollins has become that vocal guy in the wide receiver room, specifically. Very, very loud, brings a lot of energy to the room. Someone that has a lot of experience under his belt. And obviously, in terms of player comparisons, he's not going to be a Stephon Diggs type caliber player for this team. But from a leadership perspective, in terms of an energy guy, he was definitely bringing that over the spring. And I'm sure we'll see that over the summer as well at training camp. And I don't remember the exact quote from Brandon Beane, but he did say something this offseason about how change can be good, and you're removing some of these guys that have all dealt with the same heartbreak of the 13 seconds and of these, great runs in the regular season that have fallen short in the postseason. And now you're bringing guys in that maybe have had success elsewhere, like an MVS winning a Super Bowl as a contributor on that team, or you're just bringing guys that have a whole new perspective and are just happy to be on a winning team and want to help this team get over the hump. So it is interesting to kind of change that up. You're not just staying with that same roster that has dealt with that adversity. And that happens in time, just with players leaving in free agency, players retiring, injuries, etc.
I want to do a quick shout out to the Insider text line who have been rocking with us all summer long. Ryan, you got a quick shout out here before I get into our advertiser.
Yeah, shout out to Therese Teo from Juneau, Alaska. She actually said in the Insider text line that there are a lot of Bills fans in Alaska, and it should be a spot that you and I consider visiting sometime. I don't know if we can get the company on board with a live shout from Alaska, but I'm always open to that. And shout out to our friend Linda West here in the comments as well for the super chat. Always also very active on our Insider chat line.
Yeah, and Linda, it was awesome to see you at our recent live show at Wingnuts. We're at Wingnuts every single month, and we got a chance to see you recently, which was super awesome. Thank you for all your support over the years, a regular in the YouTube comments as well. The Insider text line, you can join it right now and get yourself all set up for training camp in a couple of weeks. Maybe you want to wait a little while. Maybe you want to join right before the start of training camp so you can get those 2 weeks for free before we lock things in for the season. $3.99 a month after the 2-week free trial. If you're really feeling froggy and you want to get a little bit aggressive and sign up right now, send me a DM or an email at mparrino@nyup.com. I'll give you your first month for free for doing that. The Shout text line is brought to you by Carrie C. Byer attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro, located at 237 Main Street in Buffalo, New York. If you or someone you know is seriously injured, give them a call, 716-852-1234, or check out litrolaw.com. Ryan, do you have the number that people can use to text to join the Insider text?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot here. I don't have it in front of me right now. And
716-528-6727, or head over to joinsubtext.com/shout Buffalo Bills. I put him on the spot. He's going to get it one of these times. One of these times you're going to come in, you're going to make a run down the stage with the chair in hand, come over and hit me right over the head with it. And you're going to read the number right out loud in the middle of the show.
That's right. I will get it one of these times for sure.
All right. I want to read this last part of the Von Miller quote, and we'll put a bow on this conversation. We will likely be back on Wednesday night. I got to figure that all out. We're working on a booking a couple guests here over the next couple of weeks as well. So stay tuned for all of that. If you're watching on YouTube, the best way to follow our schedule is to follow on YouTube, subscribe, like every video. That really helps as well. And then when we put up a show, you'll get a notification on your phone. The biggest team goal, Von Miller said this to Sports Illustrated, is bringing the first Super Bowl to Buffalo. Everyone feels like they deserve it, and they work hard. But Buffalo Bills fans in Western New York, they deserve it, man. They do so much for our community and our football team. Josh Allen is an amazing player in person. He's one of the most amazing people that I've ever been around in my life. These guys deserve it, and I'm going to do everything in my power to give it to them. Thoughts?
I mean, he's right about the fan base. He's right about this community. He's spot on. This fan base endured 4 straight losses in the early 90s. Some younger fans that maybe weren't around for that went through quite a playoff drought. A lot of bad teams, very similar to what Buffalo fans are experiencing now with the Sabres on the hockey side of things. And as great as this team has been, they still have not been able to get to the big game just quite yet. And if that ever were to happen, I can only imagine what it would be like in Western New York. And they would have to shut down Buffalo probably for a solid week and a half, just because of all the partying and the parade and everything else that goes with it.
It's crazy to pull up last year's Pro Football Focus document on the Bills defense, right? Because you bring up the pass rush grades from last year. Daquan Jones, number 1, 80.9. Terrell Bernard, 79.5. Ed Oliver, 77.3. Taylor Rapp in his role at 77.1. I wonder how much the Bills are planning to utilize him, likely in a starting safety role, but obviously maybe more in that Jordan Poyer ilk and somebody that they can deploy a little bit. You got a couple linebackers in here. You got a couple cornerbacks in here. You got to go all the way down, Ryan, to number 35 on the list for the Bills to find Von Miller, who came in at 52.7 with 17 total pressures in, let me see, pass rush snaps, 223. So I think, to me, that's like the biggest question of all that we can kind of end on here is like, is this possible? Is what we saw down the stretch and him finishing his last game with 2 pressures, 2 hurries, a 90.5 defensive grade, a 73.9 pass rushing grade, which was by far his highest of the season. Do we take him at his word in that he felt like he was trending up? He felt like he was trying to find something at the end of the season. And that's the version of the player that we're getting from the start this year. And then a side part of that is like, are you confident that Von Miller at age 35 can make it through an entire season healthy?
So first and foremost, there's nowhere to go but up based on what he did last season. And I think that the pressures is where we need to kind of keep an eye on Von Miller this season. It might not always translate to sacks, but again, if it leads to a hurried pass that goes incomplete on 3rd down and gets the Bills off the field, great. If it leads to a QB hit and an interception or fumble, that's, just as valuable. Obviously, if it's the fumble, it would count as a sack as well. So, things of that nature can be okay. Counting on him, though, at age, 35, like you said, to last the entire season, I have my questions. That goes back to what I said earlier in the show. How are the Bills going to manage him? If they're going to throw him out there on the field for significant reps week in and week out, I think that the odds are lower and lower with each passing week for him to last the entire year. If they're smart, if they start him out on a pitch count, get him out there in those key moments and let him see what he can do, then yeah, I think he can last. There's, load management, whatever you want to call this, over the course of a season. The Bills need to be smart about that in the practice setting, in a regular season setting. You want him to have that game day jersey every week, but you don't want him out there playing a high snap count where, again, the Bills are generally very good in terms of rotating their defensive ends, defensive tackles. You want to see that and them being extra careful with Von Miller at this point in his career.
If the Bills go through the entire summer and they don't add somebody and they basically bring 4 or 5 edge rushers off of what they have on the roster right now to the regular season, I'm wondering what Von's role is going to look like to start. Now the Bills have to come out strong. I mean, they start with the Cardinals and then they go on that murderer's row, early in the season to try to it's game after game after game to try to start fast. So I think having Von Miller in that spot is huge, especially against really good quarterbacks. But I'm wondering if to your point, if they keep him on a little bit of a pitch count, if that can't be by design, if they want to get a longer look at like a Kingsley Jonathan in that fourth role, if it ends up being Javon Solomon, if it's Dwayne Smoot, you kind of know what you have there. I'm just not excited about Dwayne Smoot. Can I say that? I'm sorry.
You can.
I watched him, and maybe my thoughts will change here as we get to training camp and the pads come on and he's able to kind of assert himself a little bit more. I'm super excited about what they have working on the inside, but on the edge, this is going to continue to be my number one alarm emoji here over the next couple of weeks.
And I think that's fair. I mean, when you look at other positions, you might have some depth issues. You might wonder how the offense is going to function without a true number one receiver. Those are fair questions, fair points. But in terms of the overall top to bottom, you do have question marks at defensive end and edge rusher. And, the one thing I'll say is a lot of quarterbacks that the Bills have on this schedule, a lot of quarterbacks in this league, they get the ball out quickly. So if they can find other ways to affect the quarterback, give their hands up, bat passes, that'll be another way for this unit to win on game days, because a lot of quarterbacks don't hold the ball long enough for edge rushers to continually have that type of an impact, especially with the kind that the Bills currently have on their roster.
What do you got? What'd you do over the weekend, by the way? Were you in town? You didn't even come over and say hi?
Yeah. No Lasertron invite. I was a little bitter about that.
That's fair. Actually, that's fair. I could have seen Talbot really mixing it up with the 9-year-olds, though. Going for now, do you know how to play Lasertron?
Oh, I played some late. Shout out to Passions Nightclub in Franklinville, New York. Growing up, they had this area that you would play Lasertron, billiard tables, all these other things for teenagers on the weekends. Loved me a good game of Lasertron.
You got to go for the bases. You don't got to waste time shooting the players. Apparently, that's not. I didn't get the memo.
Oh, see, it was the hitting the vest on the chest growing up.
So you can nab a couple people, but you only got 75 shots. So as you're going by the people, you could shoot them, but you really want to save those. The big money maker is hitting the base.
Oh,
so you got to run across and hit the base. Yeah, Caitlin
the game
played.
has passed me by. Maybe.
What's that?
Maybe the game has passed me by.
Me and you both. So what were you doing in town though?
Went to the Flying Bison Brewery. Checked that out. They had Pixie Mama Rescue, a lot of dogs there. We just wanted to check that scene out a little bit, and then we were just kind of out and about a little bit and just enjoying a weekend away or a day away. We usually go on vacation. We went to Georgia last year and then to Arizona. We're staying local. We're getting a lot of projects done. I told you pre-show we're putting up a new outdoor shed and little things like that and fixing up things around the house. So staying local. So when we can get those little getaways, we're going to take advantage of it.
Very nice. I also forgot to mention we will be is the one event that we're going to be at in July. Is that public knowledge yet? Or are we kind of keeping that on the DL for now still?
Oh, it hasn't been officially announced yet. Let's keep that on the DL.
Okay. Yeah. We'll keep that on the DL. But
and real quick, Scott Frazier, happy Canada Day. I saw it in the comments. Yes.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. Happy Canada Day to you, Scott. Stay tuned. Maybe on our next show or early next week, we will drop where we'll be. But put this date on your calendar, 7/20, July 20th. All right. Put it on your calendar for the Shout guys.
Looking forward to it.
Have a good day, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy this beautiful weather. Take care, everybody.